Hey, buddy.
Yo, what's up, my man?
How'd your Valentine's Day go? I was curious. I meant to ask you that a while back. Did you have a good Valentine's
Um,
Day?
yeah, so we do it a little bit differently. We do that our family tradition is to go to Barnes and Noble with the family. Everybody picks a book and we hang out, have hot chocolates and some yummies and some goodies and that's go to dinner. My children I didn't realize we've never had Chili's before as a family.
Okay.
And we went to a different Barnes and Noble this year, and there's a Chili's, and we're like, oh, let's try Chili's. My kids were like, this place is awesome.
They loved it.
Like, have you guys not wouldn't have had Chili's before? But I thought that was
It's
like an American staple.
the simple things in life.
Simple things in life, man. And I mean, Noah had like chicken strips like he has everywhere. And so I was like, is this yeah. That or a chicken wing. I didn't realize he loves buffalo wings. So he had 14 the other day. I was like, okay. Yeah. Yeah, man. My
Got
my
two kiddos that are gonna eat
my
you out of house
grocery
now.
yep. My grocery bills are they're skyrocketing. They are skyrocketing and not because of inflation. So yeah, man.
We
No,
just
it
we
was
just
good.
like go and get like a big old thing of mac and cheese and chicken nuggets from Costco, and that's like covers us for the entire month.
Does it? Oh,
Yeah.
nice. That's
Mac
good.
and cheese and
Yeah.
chicken nuggets. That's all we need in our
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. That bag of chicken nuggies from Costco that doesn't last real long. What about you guys? You guys do some Valentine's?
Uh, yeah, it kind of wasn't really unremarkable. It was it was good. Nothing special.
Awesome.
Just
Good story.
yeah,
Thanks for
just
sharing. A good story.
hey, something I found out recently. Um, I think I posted this on Facebook like a week ago. Did you know that it's not illegal to have your car light, like your inside car light on at night?
Say that one more time.
Like the car light, the light inside of your car.
Yeah.
I always thought that it was illegal to have that turned
Illegal?
on at night. Yeah. Like literally, I seriously thought that it was illegal to have that on at night.
Huh.
I just found out that that's not the case.
Uh, no. Have you ever questioned the legality of being dumb?
But I
You
mean,
know what I'm
think about it,
saying?
dude.
You know what I mean, though?
That could blind somebody, behind you. Like if they're
Really
like,
blind somebody?
I
Like your
mean, or it
inner
could blind you. Like if you're like looking around and you see the light, like it'd be distracting. Like,
are we having a real conversation right now? Is
yeah.
this for blind? So I have a rule in my car when it's dark that usually I don't let them because you can't see out very well
Right.
at night. But the legality of that has never crossed my mind, nor
I
have I ever
mean,
been concerned that I was going to
than
blind
like
somebody behind me.
that's no
behind me,
different than like looking at your cell phone while you're driving, right?
slightly different. Yeah, slightly different. Actually, I would say vastly different. But actually, I would say not even in the same ballpark, dude. To be honest, like not even. I mean, maybe if you
Well,
turned your light on so you could read a book while you're driving, like that could be equivalent to the cell
my
phone
mom
thing.
always told me that it was illegal, and so I've thought that for my entire life until just recently. I
What they saying in Ricky Bobby? Well, Mama don't know, won't kill her, or something like that. Yeah, yeah. So don't tell your mama that you've been driving crazy. That you're crazy. I
crazy.
turn the dome light on when I drive
That's right.
because I'm crazy. Lawbreaker. Wow.
Uh,
All
so
right.
yeah,
Well, I'm
that's what I'm
glad you
learning
learned.
these days.
I'm glad you learned that. That's. I'm glad you learned something about our judicial system.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Here's something else I learned
Oh boy.
um, on our Kinetic Man call this week. We're on the topic of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's February, and it's been man, it's been a really good month of conversation. One of the things that uh, Mike Carville, call him out. He was on our podcast. He's a part of TKM. He said something that I thought was just really interesting. I've been thinking about it a lot. He said, from a friendship basis, from a perspective, like you and I. So he lives here in Colorado, and we've been like trying to make, connect with him, try to make like a coffee appointment. He's been traveling a bunch, and we just keep on like pursuing him, and we keep on pursuing him to like, spark this friendship and hang out and do stuff together. And he said, as much as I've been kind of tough to get a hold of, I love that you are pursuing me from a friendship status. And that really caught my ear of just this idea of pursuing people when it comes to intimacy. And I think that's something that gets lost a lot in relationship with our spouses, with our kids, with our friends, is this idea of pursuing and being in pursuit from others. And so, yeah, man, I kind of wanted to just dive in that a little bit and hit on that idea. I don't know. Did anything kind of strike you in that conversation? Um, in being pursued? Do I pursue you, David? Do I pursue
No,
you as a
no, you
friend?
don't. You don't. I thought so. Intimacy month has been fascinating. We've talked about this before, but I think most men, a lot of times when you talk about intimacy, and what's cool about the Kinetic Man is I don't think any dude that has been in there for any amount of time maintains this maintains this definition anymore. But the idea that intimacy is like immediately goes to something physical, physicality, sexual, and when you look it up, at least the dictionary that we used, that aspect of intimacy is the dictionary breaks it out to saying it's euphemistic. It's a euphemism. It's not the primary definition. And it's not specific to, intimacy is not that simple. And we've expanded it and challenge dudes to be like, hey, what does intimacy look like with your wife? What does it look like with your children? What does it look like with your friends? And what does it look like with God, right? Like from a spiritual perspective, how are you seeking intimacy in all these relationships? And a couple of things that really stuck out to me in the conversation this last week. One was someone brought up the intimacy with God question, and we went into a conversation around, how intimate can you be with somebody if you're constantly on broadcast, right? If you're constantly talking, if you're constantly uh, asking and you're desiring something from that individual. And a lot of us, that's how we pursue God. God bless me in this way, answer this prayer. There's not a lot of sometimes we don't express gratitude, and it's really challenging to sit in silence and listen. If you and I are in a relationship and we desire closeness in our friendship, and like you're always talking or I'm always talking, and there's never a point where you shut your mouth and listen or even ask good questions and await the answers, right? Like there's no intimacy there. That's not a real relationship. So why would that stuck with me in this conversation. Like, why would you expect something different? Why would you be disappointed in your lack of intimacy with God when you don't desire to listen or to be silent, when in your time with him? If you even, that's the other side, if you even have time with him, right? How can you be intimate in a relationship if you never spend time with somebody? Then it's fascinating how these kind of came together. I was in a C12 forum, and the question came up, hey, what would your relationships, I asked this question, I said, what would your relationships look like if you pursued the relationships you care most about in the same way you pursue God, right? What would those relationships look like? Would they be healthy? And really specifically getting to the point of, do you spend any time, like what if you spent 10 seconds a day thinking about your kids, but you didn't really like engage them? You didn't really, actively spend time with them or your wife or your friends or whatever, right? Or your husband, whatever that looks like. And so that part stuck with me, like, okay, what does it really mean to seek intimacy with God? But then by extension, and to Mike's point, and by the way, Mike, if you're listening, Still waiting for you to respond to our pursuing of you and hang out with us. But just kidding. I love you, Mike. Um, I loved when he said that because, he caveated it. He's like, "Hey, I'm not trying to sound whatever, but dude, I love when you dudes pursue me." And there's a lot of truth in that. All of us, if we're honest, will admit that we enjoy being pursued. And a lot of us also enjoy pursuing. When you first start dating, you bought your wife, you gave her all kinds of attention, dude. You bought flowers, you want to go on dates, all the kind of things that for some reason, as time goes on, they go away, and they shouldn't. But it's like a muscle, right? It's something that we have to constantly be training and intentional about, and going to the gym for, and developing. And so that was very impactful to me as well, in that acknowledging as a dude that we typically think in terms of being the pursuer, but actually being pursued, and what that looks like to be pursued. Like, I think all of us desire it, man. I think all of us desire
Dude, totally.
that people, our spouse, our kid, dude, and our kids, like, what's that relationship look like? And how do you, like, dude, I love when my daughter, she did it last night. Like, I'm snuggling Jake and we're messing around, and my daughter comes in and she kind of like lays her head on my chest and it's just like, "Dad, I love you." And then she left, and she came back and did it again. And then she left and she came back and did it again. I was like, man, that's really special. Those moments are really special. And how do you cultivate that, right? Like, how do you do more of that, get more of that? Because at the end of the day, those are just indicators of intimacy. And when you really seek that depth of relationship, then you should see fruit from that, or you should desire to see fruit from that. And how do you actively, like, sometimes it stinks, man. Like, if you're pursuing, especially like in friendships, if you're pursuing a dude and you're like, "Hey man, I want to do," like, there's certain guys I've invited to do a lot of things. And the other day, no kidding, I thought about it and I was like, I'm just gonna stop. Why do I, the answer is always no.
Yeah.
Or at least it's no with me. And I'm gonna stop. But that some of these individuals in the past have been like, "Hey dude, just keep inviting me." You're like, that's such a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
And so it's challenging to do that, especially in today's day and age where we are like so isolated, and don't do things like we used to, and how we're created to be, how we were designed to be.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I'm just kind of thinking through our relationship, yours and my relationship, as friends, and you're way better about it than I am. But, dude, like just receiving a text message from you that says, "Hey, dude, just thinking about you. Love you. Hope you're having a great day." Like that feels good. Like I love that aspect that you do for me and our friendship. Um,
Well, I love that you just heart emoji it, because there's a lot of effort that goes into just heart emojiing it, right? Like,
Next
love it.
time,
I'm
I was
joking,
actually,
dude.
no, it's funny you say that. I was actually rethinking about one of our conversations about someone giving you a thumbs up to to one of your text messages, and like it was like the yellow thumbs up. It wasn't even like he was like he could at least give me the common courtesy of like choosing the color of his actual skin color, right? Like, don't give me a yellow thumbs up. Give me
Nobody's
like,
even yellow, dude. Nobody's
yeah,
even yellow.
give me a white thumbs up because he's like a white
No, it was
dude. Like,
orange. It wasn't yellow. It was
yeah, it was
orange. It
orange.
was an orange thumbs up. Like, nobody's that color orange, dude. Like, nobody.
Next time I'll, instead of giving you the actual heart emoji, I'll just write
Yeah,
out heart
you
emoji
should.
and just spell it out.
You should.
Yeah.
That'd be more effort.
At least he put the effort of writing it out.
Yeah.
No, but like seriously,
But that's
like,
a serious consideration though, right? Like,
yeah,
we should consider our responses equally. And not from the perspective, like, if I write you a text, I'm like, "Hey dude," like, if I expect something back, then I should check why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? Like, I should check
fair.
myself and be like, "Okay, am I genuinely doing this?" And that's what I found about what I love about no longer like texting. I will occasionally will, but I typically try not to text. Like I'm gonna pray for you. I prefer to just call and
Yeah.
pray for somebody. And what I love about that is I expect nothing back at all from that. Right. So do I like I can genuinely say in that context of prayer, I don't expect that person to give me the equivalent of love you too. Like, oh, pray for you too. Or like if I'm praying for them, I actually prefer to just pray for them and say amen and wrap it up. I don't like give it a pause and be like, oh, are you gonna pray for me now?
Are you gonna pray for me too?
Right. And but do I am I that way? Am I that way across how I offer intimacy in other areas, like I love you or my text to you or whatever? But it's interesting because I do think one, we have to be gracious in how we receive, right? And that's a challenge. That's for my wife, that's a huge challenge. Like, you know, I I'll be like, oh, you look pretty today. Don't say anything, right? Like I have to say it quick, like because it's like, oh, this whole thing, whatever. And I think there's an element too, though, of responsibility to like what do you desire, right? Like what do you actually desire in our responses? And again, it's not the intent to sending it. It's not the intent that you're seeking from somebody, but if you are just a thumbs up emoji person, like why is that? What does that say? Is there something there, right? Is there
Yeah.
something there to consider? And really what it is challenging our habits. It's challenging all of our habits and our habits of pursuit, of being pursued. All these things are intimacy habits. When you talk practically about this stuff, yeah, there's a lot of like touchy feely, great. Oh, pursuing is awesome. But we're like, what does that really look like? That's what the kinetic man's all about, right? Like, what does it look like to do these things? And so I shared something that I just recently started, and I'll tell you where I got it. Where it made an impression was when we went to that men's conference, and Jimmy Graham he showed that video, and there was it must be like a family thing they do. I don't know, but they put their foreheads together. He did it a couple times with his kids, and so I was like, I
Yeah.
really love that. I really love the visual expression of intimacy and maybe even cultural family culture expressiveness. And so I started praying for my when I pray for my kids at night, I had been like putting my hand on them, like touching their head or something. And now I walk up and dude, there's no resistance, by the way. It wasn't like it was new, but it wasn't like they weren't like, this is weird. It just they immediately fell into it. And I put my hands on their face and I put our heads together and I pray for them at night.
Yeah.
And it it's interesting. So I offered that story not as a look at me or um as a I'm doing anything right. I did it or I mentioned it because it's another step towards doing something in desiring a closer relationship with my children. It started with praying for them, you know, some point last year, maybe 2 years ago, whatever it was. It went to me laying hands on them and praying for them. And now it's evolved into even more intimate, putting our heads together. Can you imagine if you put your head together? If you pray, like what, we pray most mornings in our office. Like we should start like holding each other's face and putting our
That
head.
was my next question was like, why haven't you
Yeah,
done that
maybe I
to me
will.
yet?
Maybe I will. But dude, I tell you, it changes the whole game, right? It changes things significantly. And if we're not evolving and challenging ourselves to change our habits, then there will be an aspect of staleness to our intimacy. And you just have to question like, what are we trying to do here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And another piece that, I kind of been thinking through as far as friendship goes to Mike's point was just being the guy that makes the invite, right? Over and over and over again. And being the guy that's going to pursue. Like, we've pursued Mike to be our friend, to like hang out, to go do things. We have this WhatsApp group for Colorado, and we're pursuing these guys to go snowboarding, right? Or hiking or mountain biking or whatever. Like, dudes, let's go. Like, let's be the ones that make the invite. And like, let's get these people together and continuously making new connections and new invites to get guys together and hang out in community. And I think that, one, that's something that's lacking right now. I think right now, more often than not, you and I are the ones being the pursuers, pursuing and making the invites. At least I do. I don't get as many invites from other dudes to like go and do things, and that's okay. I think we all each have our role, but I think that that's something that we could all do as men, specifically, a lot better job of is pursuing those friendships, like being the one that creates the space and makes the invite and says, "Hey, dude, let's go get a coffee. Hey, dude, let's go on a bike ride. Let's hit up the mountains and go snowboarding." Right? You want to hang out? Do you want to be my best friend? Like that doesn't happen that often anymore, and I think that that's a space of intentionality for friendship, specifically in intimacy, that we can all get better at.
Yeah, and I would say let's stop making excuses too, right? Like
Mm.
just because it's the way it's not, I would say we're reverse evolving in this area. Like genuinely, I think we're
Yeah.
getting dumber in our relationships. And I think we're actually getting dumber in general. We're so this is like the smartest generation and how easily we're manipulated and by the news and like all
All
these
the
different
distractions.
dude, all the things. I'm like, dude, we're actually getting dumber in execution and emotionally and relationally for sure we are falling behind and we are evolving backwards. Like we're going back towards, I mean, I don't believe we came from monkeys, but I think we're going back to being monkey brains.
What's
Actually,
there's a
monkeys
movie.
monkeys they actually have a better expression of intimacy in picking bugs off each other.
Picking bugs. Dude, there's a movie. Like, I can't think of the name of it. There's a movie where,
Idiocracy.
yeah, where I think
Yeah,
it's Luke Wilson, where he's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like this.
yeah. Idiocracy.
Everyone's like just fat and lazy and sitting in
The
a like
House of
recliner.
Representing, dude. The House of
Yeah.
Representing. It's got electrolytes. I was
Is
thinking about
that
that
where
movie
we're
the other
like? Are
day.
we going? Are we going there? I mean, maybe, man. It's pretty scary.
And I say it in jest, but I also say, I also, the idea, I can't imagine, um, I can't imagine being so, uh, being in a place of, and I don't know what drives that place, but if you were going to invite me somewhere and I always said no, and then I'm like, Stu, just keep inviting me though. Like what actually does that say? Right. And when I say let's stop making excuses, yes, you and I do pursue a lot, and I mean, there's even guys that it's so it gets harder to do it because of the way I'm built, and I acknowledge like I am very flawed, and there are some things in my the things I struggle with, things in my background that when I don't get an invite or I can be easily slighted, and a lot of that's in my head, a perception on my part, right? I acknowledge it's a growth area for me, but there are certain folks that I'm like, hey, you want to like go snowboarding? Like, oh no, can't go, but I'm going with my boys on another day, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, thank you for sharing it. And then, but then I had to check myself and be like, I'm glad that these individuals are going with their homies, right? And I hope more dudes do that because we make so many excuses for why we don't do stuff and why we say no. And at the end of the day, like, what are we waiting for? What are you waiting for? And what's going to, and it's not just one area of life, right? When the more times that you don't prioritize or seek to gain, to grow in a relationship like it's just going to be harder. And we can look around all over the place and see the isolation. And it's not, dude, I got on a call yesterday with a gentleman and started the call, and I asked a question, and the call was set for 30 minutes, and about 27 minutes later he stopped talking. But he was sharing like, dude, we'd never have met, we never even spoke before. Like this was an email connection. I'm like, hey, let's jump on a call. I'd love to hear more about what who you are. And he was sharing trauma after trauma after trauma. At one point, getting teary eyed. And what struck me about it, one, is that thank you, God, for putting me in a position to be able to express some love and empathy for this individual. But it also struck me that this dude, most likely, there are zero friends that he's sharing. That I was potentially in that moment his only friend. I'm not even his friend, right? I use that word, to me, is really important. We're not even necessarily acquaintances at this point, but it's so much stuff that we're all carrying around that he just needed an ear and somebody that, for whatever reason, he trusted in that moment. And I thank God for that opportunity. But man, it made me kind of sad. I was like, dude, like, who are your boys? So I invited him to TKM because my desire, my passion for him is not, dude, everybody in TKM is not my best friend. That's impossible. And I don't desire that. But our goal, our desire is that you meet a best friend in there. That you meet somebody that you can like do life with, because again, we all need it. And you denying that you need it, it's just it's stupid, right? Like now, if you and I hear, if some dude's like, wow, I just kind of handle it on my own, we're both like, whatever, dude, like whatever. You are the one exception on the planet that needs nobody, right? And so at the end of the day, we have to really get to a place. If we can inspire anything, it would be to inspire somebody to do that thing, to like some dude out there to be the one that reaches out and do it. Yeah, you're going to get denied, man. Just get over it. You're going to be denied. And if you're not doing it at home, like that's a place to start. Your kids desire and here's a part that really, that is most powerful. Whatever it is that we're doing, we're passing it on, period. So if you are doing isolation, you're passing that on to your kids. And you might as well be honest about it. Is that what you desire? You're the one that they look to as a hero, whether you're mom, dad, whatever, your parent, or an uncle or an aunt, somebody of influence. They're looking to you. And if you are isolated and you are like, you might as well project that forward and ask yourself, like, do I want my kids to be lonely? Do I want them to be like I am? Do I want them to be miserable? And as you get older, dude, it's just going to get worse, right? Like I have a stable now of homies that, like, I feel very confident going into old age, looking forward 20, 30 years from now. Like I feel very confident that the work I'm putting in now and the work I put in for the last few years and potentially the last 2 decades, I'm not going to be lonely. I'll
Yeah,
tell you
dude.
that much.
I was I said that Valentine's for us wasn't anything amazing, but at the same time, so my wife and I went and had a coffee date after we dropped the kids off at school, and we were sitting there hanging out, and I had noticed this group of older men. They were probably in their 70s, 80s. There was four men sitting around a table drinking coffee together on Valentine's Day, and they were finishing up, and they got up, and they all hugged each other. And I heard one of them say, "I love you, Happy Valentine's Day." And then they kind of got up and left. And like that gave me so much joy to see something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's, I got that too, right? I have a group of dudes here in Colorado that hang out. Like we're going snowboarding tomorrow. I can't wait to see them. And we hug each other and we tell each other that we love each other. And like it's freaking rad, dude. Like I love it. And it just warmed my heart to see like this older group of men in this space doing that. And I could see us in that same group, in that same space, like later on down the world, when we're 80, sitting around a coffee table on a Tuesday, just hanging out. And um, I desire that for other men too, to have a group of homies that you're hanging out with and telling each other that you love each other. Another thing that came to mind was, you had mentioned, I think it was probably on another podcast or maybe it was on TKM. There's this idea of like when you drop the kids off at school, and I've seen it. I've been a part of it, right? Where like you drop the kids off and you roll the window down, and you're like, "Hey, Jake, I love you. Maya, I love you." You're like just obnoxiously loud and Like, and they're like, oh, you're not being embarrassed, but dude, they love it, right? They
Here's
love
what's
it.
funny too is I'll wait till Maya. So Maya meets like her group of friends here. The boys walk and they're just kind of they walk away because where their classrooms are. And I'll yell at and it's not just my kids. That's a funny part. It's not my kids. Like we carpool, and so I
Yeah,
yell to the other kids
yeah, yeah.
too, and they're
The
like,
boys are
"Oh
like,
my
oh, that's
gosh!"
weird.
And but that's gonna make an impression
Yeah,
in the future. I don't know what it is. It may not be a positive impression. I don't know. But I wait for Maya to get to, and I know all her friends, but she walks and it's right along the path that I have to drive.
yeah,
And when she gets there, then I slow roll it. I get to her and I'm like, Maya, I love you so much. And then I'll say her other friends' names. And Maya, it's funny. She's like, oh my gosh, Dad. But all her friends are like, bye, I love you. Bye. They all yell. And it's almost like when we talk about this all the time when you go to the elementary school for recess
yeah.
and you're a dad out there, dude. It's like freaking bees to honey, man.
You're the hero, man.
The kids, like all these kids, and at some point you're like, okay, kids, like you stop touching me. Like this
Yeah,
is but there's all these kids that they just flock, and it's just the power of being present, being I speak from the perspective of a dad. I can't speak from the perspective of mom. I'm not a mom, but as a dad, it attracts these kids, and it has everywhere. It's every school, every elementary school my kids have been in. There's just been multiple because we were military, obviously. Every school, it's the same. Every school, it's the same. Every playground, it's the same. I watch kids when I'm at the playground with my kids, or I'm outside. This happened, dude. We just went skiing, and we've got a place this weekend, and I'm in the pool with my boys and throwing them and just all over whatever. And there's a dad in the hot tub and his son is like 12 and he's in the pool and I can see it, dude. He just watches us. He watches us. And this kid, to his credit, got brave and he's like, hey, can I play with you guys? And I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, dude. And then we like immediately, Jake got on his shoulders, Noah was on mine, and we started doing what's that, chicken fighting and
yeah,
in
yeah.
the pool. But dude, these kids, he's 12 years, that kid was 12. Like they want it, man. They want it. It's the same everywhere. And we miss these opportunities. But here's the thing: that 12-year-old boy is going to be a 20-year-old man, and he's going to be a 30-year-old man. He's going to be a 40-year-old man, and it's still. I was having a blast with my kids the entire time, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, I started. Excuse me. I started having kids. I think what Maya's 13, so whatever. I was 30ish. 32 is when we had our first kid. And so from 32 on to I'll be so Noah's 8, so 10 years from now, so 45ish, 32 to 45ish. It is like my window with the kids, and then they're all going to be going, and the last one is 55. Will be out, dude. 55 years old. If I live to potentially the average of say I live to 80, I have like almost 30 years of time to fill. So when you think of it in those terms, if I do nothing until I'm 55 and cultivating a relationship, that is decades of time that I've missed out on creating deep, profound relationships. And dude, that's like imagine for the next 20 years to just go snowboarding by yourself. Like
Yeah.
that's not, I mean, I guess it's awesome, but like also not so much, right?
Yeah, I'd say not awesome.
And but that's what we do. That's what we're setting ourselves up for. And some of us, some people just look at your parents to see how many friends they have or whatever that looks like, and you just, you know, I mean, you can extrapolate what that looks like for you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you choose to do that, like it's not, I'm not passionate about like individuals. I mean, outside of TKM, but like looking at, I guess I am like, I just look around and I'm like, man, like you just need a friend and it's not minimal stuff. Like it's not trivial. The traumas that we just have in life in general, dude, they stack up and it's just you might as well expect it. And if you're a Christian, one of the things the Bible promises is that you will go through these challenges. You will, it's not, it never says it's going to be easy,
Right.
but at the end of the day, like, how do you, and in the Bible also, if you dig in, now you don't have to dig in, just read a little bit. It doesn't tell us just to rely on God, like just go to God and Jesus for everything. It doesn't. It tells us to go to others. And even talks about it with confession, right? Like confessing your sins. It talks about confessing your sins to others as a requirement. And so I think we have to really embrace these areas of life and be like, hey, and we talk about it a lot, dude, but I feel like it's getting worse. I just feel like it's getting worse, and we carry a lot of these burdens. And so how do you challenge yourself to do something about it, and do it, use a low-hanging fruit? Although, that was one of the things that we talked about. We're like, why can I do this with people I'm not close to? And that's just just to accept that too. It's harder to do it
Yeah,
with people you love the most because they can hurt you. Like that's it.
for
They can
sure.
hurt you. But do it with some low-hanging fruit. Do it in your house, do it with your kids. Like just be a slightly, you don't have to be creative. Just take one more step, and you'll start to see a cascading effect. And you're like, oh, I can do, dude, I did a craft with Noah the other day. Dude, I'm not a crafty guy. That's not my
Not your
jam.
thing.
Not my thing at all. But I did it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun, dude. Do
Yeah.
you like it? And he was like, oh, I love that, Dad. That's awesome. It's great. I was like, oh, your mom would have done way better. But I mean, the stuff just starts cascading, right? It just, my kids now, if I'm not there this morning having a meeting, my daughter's like, hey, will you text me? I'm like, yes. It just text me, good morning. Okay, I'll do that. It's easy. But those are little
Yeah.
indicators,
It's a feeling of being pursued.
right? 100%.
And it's so easy. It's
So
so
easy, dude.
easy.
So I sent her a little thumbs up emoji, an
Orange?
orange thumbs up emoji. And I was like, there's your text.
There.
There's your text.
Dude, there's so many things that we can do to be in pursuit of those that we love in a relationship. I was just thinking through the same thing. Like, dude, text your wife. Just text your wife and say, "Hey, I love you. I hope you're having a great day." It's so easy, and she will love it, right? You do the same for like you do for me. Like, hey, buddy, hope you're having a great day. Do a voice text. Like, send a prayer. Hey, man, I'm thinking about you. Can I pray for you? Do a voice text. It's so easy. It takes a minute, and they love it, and it's a feeling of pursuit. It's There's so many things that we can do to pursue others, to be in a relationship, to build intimacy. And then lastly, that piece of pursuing God. Like, what does that look like? What does he want from us to be in a relationship with him? How are we pursuing him? And to your point, like, it's not just like asking for things all the time. Like, if our kids are just like asking us for stuff all the time, as a father, do we do we like that? No. Like, how do we want our kids to be pursuing us in a relationship and loving us? The same goes for God. How are we pursuing him and sitting with him and listening to him and open our hearts to him?
Yeah, man. No, and you're also modeling all that.
100%.
At the end of the day, do not expect your wife to pursue you if you're not willing to pursue her. Do not expect your children to ever pursue you if you're not pursuing them. And don't expect, there was a interesting, I think it was a John Mark Comer. I was listening to some podcast, and they were talking about um feeling guilty for like for sin or for things that we do, missteps. He said you shouldn't fear the conviction. You shouldn't fear the guilt that you feel that drives you, ideally drives you to your knees. He said you should fear when you no longer feel that,
Mm.
because that is a great indicator that God has stepped away to allow you to continue to do the things because you've shown a preference to walk a certain path. And so when you no longer feel anything towards those indiscretions that you used to feel something towards, that's the scary point. That's when you should be really concerned that God has stepped away. And in this context, there is, yes, he's God, but I think Rick Warren talks about the whole purpose of our time on this earth is to know God better, to serve him, and to build our character so that we can even better serve him when we get to heaven. And so when you boil it down to those things, it really there's a level of pursuing a God. So I don't know, someone said it in our call. They said, the relationship starts with God pursues us. He chases us down. And then the roles kind of switch and we spend the rest of our lifetime chasing God, chasing him. And I thought that was interesting. And I think that it's not that simple. I think there's some back and forth, and God definitely carries us through. I mean, I know he's carried me through a ton of hard times,
Sure.
but there is an aspect of, hey, you should, when you want something so bad, you should be willing to chase it, to go after it, right? And there's no way that anybody, the men in our lives, if we're unwilling to pursue them, then that title never change, right? They'll never be led into that. Our children will never learn how to pursue unless we teach them. Our young men will never understand what it means to serve and pursue a woman if we don't show them through the way we treat our wives. Our daughters will never understand what it means to be healthily pursued in a godly way if they don't observe us doing the same for them and for our wives, right? And so there's a lot more at stake than just kind of, well, I just do my own thing.
Well, and not to call out this individual, and I won't, but there's a guy in our group who's from the Northeast, right? And people from the Northeast just like aren't aren't that loving, right? That's just not me, right? I didn't grow up that way, right? My family wasn't that way, so I just like I don't do those kind of things, and I kind of want to throw out the BS flag on that, um, to the point that you're making of like, nah, man, we're a model, and just because like your family didn't hug, right, and didn't show love or affection in that way, doesn't mean you have to follow suit. Like, be the change maker and like be the model. Like, do you want your children? Do you want your daughter to marry a man who's just like never gonna give her a hug because he's just not that way? No, I don't think so. I want my daughter to be loved unconditionally all the time and pursued from her husband just as much as I'm doing for mine, right? So I kind of
Yeah.
throw the BS flag on all you
Well, to his credit,
northeasterns.
he's acknowledging, and it's so fascinating. Culture is so fascinating because that is not a warm place. I will say, when I plugged into to our neighbors and the church, very warm, very loving, but there is just a hard exterior. It's a fascinating place, and I'd never desire to live there ever. Because it wasn't, I couldn't acclimate to that. But and no hate intended, I'm obviously joking, but there are, to his credit, he recognizes certain things, and he also had a significant thing that happened with his kids, and he responded differently than his natural inclination. But I will say also, I think in general, when we're, all of us do it, but we can all point to something. Like I could I can divorce my wife and justify it because my dad was married 5 times, or I can choose to break that chain. I mean, and dude, that's culturally, dude, that whole side of the family. I was talking to a cousin, and I think me and one other cousin, that's a big Mexican family, right? Like lots of cousins. I don't even know all their names. Lots of cousins, lots of aunties, uncles, lots of tios and tias,
Rodriguez.
a lot of, yeah, Rodriguez, a lot of people. And me and one cousin apparently are the two that have not had divorce. That whole family has, it's generational, boom, 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 but generation after generation. Well, I don't desire that for my kids. And that wasn't modeled for me to stay together. Like I said, my dad was married 5 times. My mom was like the third in the list. And so I would, my my oldest brother, he got to see all five. I just saw three. And so there's always reasons that we can give to not grow. But again, it boils down to, what do you want? Like, have you identified what you actually want? And have you created your non-negotiables? And what does that mean? So when I married Erica, it's not all roses and strawberries and rainbows, whatever it is, and unicorns.
Unicorns and rainbows. That's the same.
Yeah, whatever.
Unicorns and rainbows.
Grapes and unicorns and rainbows and all those things. It's not
Eggplants.
that.
Eggplants.
It's not all that all the time, ever, or not ever. It's not all that all the time. But one thing that I did say when we got married is like, okay, well, I'm not gonna divorce. I'm just not gonna divorce you. And dude, that was a challenge for me. That was a challenge, not because of her, but because of me and my upbringing. And you had similar, I mean, not as many divorces by your dad necessarily, but you still came from that. And so there are decisions that we have to make, and there are things that we have to do. And my challenge to any of our listeners is what are you going to do about it? Right? Like, I don't know anybody. And if you are one of these people, I'd love to talk to you, but that says, I really don't want friends, and I don't need, and I don't want friends. Like, if you're one of those people, genuinely, I would love to have a conversation just to understand what it takes to get to that place. Right. But I don't think anybody's saying, I want to be a terrible friend. I don't want any friends. I want to live in isolation, and I don't want intimacy with my wife, my kids, my husband, my friends, my God. I don't know those people, but I know plenty of people who that's exactly how they live. 100%. If you looked at them and you said, and you spoke truth, you're like, you are this person, because look, like I was reading this morning in Matthew, I think it's Matthew 12. It talks about that a good tree cannot produce bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. But the fruit, and out of a good heart come good things, out of a bad heart come evil things, right? Well, that's the thing that sticks with me. The fruit is the thing. The fruit is the thing. So what is the fruit in your life? Just analyze it. Just assess it. What's the fruit in your life? And what are you going to do about it? Right? Like, what are you going to actually do about it? Because you can, with the awesome thing about all this, you can change it today. So what are those steps you're going to do to change it? Right. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like overwhelming. It can literally be the step of, I'm just going to give my kids a hug and tell them I love them. Right. It's not that hard. And do you really mean it? And if you don't, then that's a whole another thing. And you've still made progress, right? You still made progress. Why do I not love my kids? Okay. Because I was deeply wounded or something, whatever it is, dude, you've still made progress at least.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing that doesn't work. If you're hoping to get like, some sexy time from your spouse,
yeah,
what doesn't work is sending her a text message with a bunch of eggplant emojis.
That's shocking to me. I assume that's what every woman wants.
Yeah, doesn't work.
Yeah, weird.
So guys, don't send your wife a bunch of eggplant emojis.
But you know your wife better than we know your wife, so maybe that works.
Didn't work. Nope.
Yeah, I'm shocked. This is my shocked face. I am absolutely befuddled that Crystal didn't respond to that attempt at intimacy, quote unquote.
It was kind of like the opposite effect.
Yeah.
Happened. Like,
yeah. Wow. Shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
So if you get anything out of this podcast today,
that's the thing.
That's the thing.
That's the thing to not do. So one thing to not do, there's a lot of things to do's, but the one thing to not do is do what you did.
Eggplant emojis. Doesn't work.
That's great. That's great.
You're welcome, gents. You're welcome.
That's good.
Now,
on that note,
what is this note, David? What is this?
No, on that note, that I don't know how to better close out this episode than eggplant.
Now here's some action items for it to close out. No kidding. Think about how you can be in pursuit of the relationships that you love the most. How do you pursue your bride? How do you pursue your husband? How do you pursue your kids? How do you pursue your best friend or a dude that you're, interviewing to be your best friend? How do you pursue your God? And a lot of it is so simple and it takes very little effort on your part, but you just got to do it. So maybe that's the action. Like, no kidding, write down some stuff that you can do.
And cheat code, start by shutting your mouth and listening in all
Mm.
those, right? Like in all those, genuinely just show show a desire to understand and know that person better. And I'll tell you, I struggle with that with God and my wife and my friends and everybody in my life.
Your best friend.
And my best friend. And that is a huge step that will tell somebody so much.
Love it.
Sweet dude. Love you, homie.
You too, buddy. Love you.
If you're in Colorado, you're going to miss tomorrow because this will not come out by then.
Sure.
But if you're interested in snowboarding and doing super dope stuff,
Only for good. Only if you're a good
So messed up.
snowboarder or skier.
so cold hard.
If
So
you
cold-hearted.
if you're a beginner and you're just starting out on like greens, you're not invited. I'll just be honest. You're not invited.
There's some there's some realness to that. Excuse me. That's cold-hearted. We can go another day. We'll do like a green day. We'll do like a day.
We'll take you when we take our kids.
We'll do
We'll do the bunnies.
not anymore, dude. My kids are cruising.
That's true.
Yeah,
Mine are-
we'll just
mine are
do
still
it.
on the
We'll
bunny
do
slopes.
maybe one day a season. We'll do like a
a
that's like
charity-
a
charity
giving
event?
back. We'll do like a giving back. Like who wants to learn? Let's do that. Wow. And if you ski, I can't help you. But if you want to learn to snowboard, one day a season. We'll do
I
that.
don't know if I can. I don't know if I can volunteer for that day. That might just be a day.
Oh,
Kidding.
hold. So
Kinda.
there are caveats on our friendship, by the way.
Yeah. You have to be good.
You have to be good at stuff. Ideally better than us. All right.
Love you. See
Love
ya.
you. Bye.